My name is Victoria Lane, and I'm 32 years old. I'm standing in the middle of my grandmother's driveway when she asks the question that makes my stomach drop so hard I swear I feel it in my knees. She squints at me, confused but curious, one manicured hand gripping her cane. "Why did you take an Uber?" she asks, her voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Where's the SUV we gave you?" The air around us freezes. I laugh first, not because it's funny, but because I don't know what else to do. My chest tightens as I feel eyes turning toward me. Family members, neighbors, a cousin recording something on her phone. Everyone waiting for my answer. I open my mouth. Nothing comes out. Because the truth, the real truth, is not something I ever plan to say out loud. Not here, not like this. Before I can respond, my aunt clears her throat behind me. My mother stiffens at my side, and my cousin Jason lets out a soft, knowing chuckle like he already understands something the rest of the crowd doesn't. My grandmother tilts her head. "Victoria," she presses, "we didn't buy you a luxury SUV just for it to disappear." That's when my mother finally jumps in, too fast, too rehearsed. "Oh, Mom," she says brightly, waving a dismissive hand, "she sold it." The word hits me like a slap. Sold it? My grandmother's brows knit together. "Sold it," she repeats slowly, disbelief creeping into her voice. "Why would she sell a gift like that?" All eyes turn back to me. And that's the moment I realize something terrible. They've already told her a story where I'm the irresponsible one, the ungrateful one, the daughter who couldn't be trusted with something expensive, a story where I don't get to speak unless it's to confirm their version of me. I feel my heart start pounding in my ears. If I correct her now, everything changes. If I stay quiet, I let the lie live. Before I can decide, my grandmother looks me straight in the eyes and says softly but sharply, "Is that true, Victoria?" I swallow. Before I tell you what I said or what I didn't, you need to understand how we got here. Because this moment didn't start in that driveway. It started decades ago, with love that came with conditions, generosity that came with strings, and a family that learned very early how to rewrite reality when it suited them. But before we go any further, if you've ever felt blamed for something you didn't do or painted as the villain in a story you didn't write, I want you to pause and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me. Because this story isn't just about an SUV. It's about what happens when silence finally costs more than the truth. Now, let me take you back. I grew up believing my grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore, was the strongest woman I knew. She was elegant, commanding, and impossibly generous, at least on the surface. She built her wealth after my grandfather passed, turning real estate investments into a fortune that wrapped itself around our family like a crown. And with that crown came expectations. She believed money was love, gifts were proof, and loyalty was mandatory. My mother, Carolyn, understood this better than anyone. She was Eleanor's golden child, the daughter who followed every rule, echoed every opinion, and never, ever challenged her authority. I was not that daughter. I was sensitive, quiet, observant, the kind of child who noticed how praise was distributed like currency and how quickly it could be taken away. Growing up, I watched my cousins receive brand new bikes while I got hand-me-downs. I watched my mistakes magnified while theirs were brushed off. When I asked questions, I was told I was dramatic. When I cried, I was too emotional. Still, I tried. I tried to be grateful. I tried to be agreeable. I tried to earn love that always seemed just slightly out of reach. By my late 20s, I'd built a life I was proud of, quietly. I worked in digital marketing, lived in a modest apartment, paid my own bills. I didn't ask my family for help, mostly because help always came with reminders later. So when my grandmother called me last year and said, "Victoria, I've decided to do something special for you," my first instinct wasn't excitement. It was fear. She invited me to lunch at her country club, white tablecloths, crystal glasses, waiters who knew her by name. "I've noticed how hard you've been working," she said, smiling tightly, "and I think it's time you stopped struggling." I wanted to tell her I wasn't struggling. I wanted to tell her I liked my life the way it was. But before I could speak, she slid a folder across the table. Inside was paperwork for a brand new luxury SUV, fully paid, registered in my name. My breath caught. "This is too much," I said immediately. She waved me off. "Nonsense. Family takes care of family." My mother squeezed my hand under the table. "See," she whispered, "she believes in you." I should have listened to the warning bell in my head. Because what Eleanor didn't say was that gifts in our family were never just gifts. They were leverage, proof of generosity used later to silence you, control you, or shame you. Still, I accepted. I drove that SUV home that day feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Seen. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. Compliments, smiles, pride. Then the comments started. "You know, that car costs more than most people's houses. You should be more careful. People are watching. You wouldn't want to embarrass the family." Then the requests. "Can you drive your cousin to the airport? Can you loan the car for the weekend? You don't mind, right? After all, it was a gift." When I hesitated, the tone shifted. "Wow," my aunt said once, "if someone bought me a car like that, I'd be more grateful." I started feeling like the SUV wasn't mine at all. It was a reminder, a leash. Then came the meeting, the one no one warned me about. I was called to my mother's house one evening under the guise of dinner. Instead, I walked into a living room full of relatives sitting in a semicircle. My grandmother sat in the center. "Victoria," she said calmly, "we need to talk." I knew then. This wasn't about dinner. And as she folded her hands and looked at me like a disappointed judge, I realized something had already been decided about me, about that car, about my place in the family. I just didn't know yet how far they were willing to go. And standing in that driveway now, with an Uber receipt still glowing on my phone and a lie hanging in the air, I understood one terrifying truth. They didn't just take the SUV, they took my voice with it. But not for long. Because as my grandmother waits for my answer, I realize something even worse than the lie itself. Someone in my family made sure I wouldn't have that SUV today, and they did it on purpose. I look at my grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore, standing there in her pearl earrings and pressed linen slacks, waiting for my answer like a verdict she's already written. "Is that true, Victoria?" she asks again. "Did you sell the SUV?" The driveway feels smaller somehow, like the walls are closing in even though we're outside. I can hear a lawnmower somewhere down the street, birds chirping, life going on as if mine isn't unraveling in real time. I glance at my mother. She won't look at me. That's when I know. Whatever story they told didn't include my consent. "No," I say finally, my voice steadier than I feel. "I didn't sell it." The reaction is immediate. My aunt gasps. My cousin Jason raises his eyebrows like he's watching a plot twist he didn't expect. My grandmother's lips press into a thin line. "Then where is it?" Eleanor asks. Before I can answer, my mother turns sharply toward me. "Victoria," she snaps under her breath, smiling for the audience. "Now is not the time." I feel something crack inside my chest. "When is the time?" I ask quietly. Her eyes flash. "Don't do this here." But it's already happening. "I didn't sell the SUV," I repeat, louder now, "and I didn't take an Uber by choice." A murmur ripples through the group. My grandmother straightens. "Explain." I inhale slowly. My palms are damp. This is the part where I either retreat into the role they've assigned me, or I step out of it permanently. It was taken, I say. Silence. What do you mean, taken? Eleanor asks. I mean, I say, swallowing hard, I woke up 3 weeks ago and it was gone. My mother spins toward me. That's not what we agreed to say. The words hit like ice water. Agreed? My grandmother's eyes flick between us. Agreed to say? And there it is, the slip, the lie cracking under its own weight. I turn fully toward my mother now. You told me not to say anything, I say. You told me it would upset Grandma. You told me you'd handle it. Her jaw tightens. Victoria, stop. No, I say, I won't. My heart is racing, but something inside me feels strangely calm, like I've already lost everything that could be taken from me in this moment. I came outside one morning, and the SUV wasn't there. No broken glass, no forced entry, just gone. That's impossible, my aunt says. Those things have security tracking. They do, I nod, which is why I called the dealership. My grandmother's attention sharpens. And? I was told the vehicle had been legally transferred. Gasps, whispers. Transferred to who? Eleanor asks. I look straight at my mother. To my uncle, I say. Your son. My grandmother's face drains of color. That's a lie, my mother snaps. You're confused. I'm not, I say. I have the paperwork. Now Eleanor turns fully toward Carolyn. Is this true? My mother opens her mouth, closes it, opens it again. We needed it, she finally says. It was temporary. The word temporary rings in my ears like a bad joke. You signed documents to transfer a car registered in my name, I say, my voice shaking now, without telling me? My grandmother grips her cane tighter. You forged her signature? Carolyn exhales sharply. It was family business. Family business. That phrase has been used my entire life to excuse things that would be unforgivable anywhere else. You didn't even ask me, I whisper. You just took it. My mother's voice drops. You weren't using it properly. A bitter laugh escapes me. I drove it to work and home. You weren't sharing, she snaps. And your uncle needed it more. His image matters. He's meeting clients. So my life doesn't? I ask. No one answers. That silence tells me everything I've ever needed to know about where I rank in this family. My grandmother turns away from me, pacing slowly. You told me she sold it, she says to my mother. It sounded better, Carolyn replies. Better. So much of my life has been rearranged to sound better for someone else. You embarrassed me, Eleanor says quietly. And just like that, the blame shifts. Not the forgery, not the manipulation, not the theft. Me. I embarrassed you? I repeat. I lost my car. You should have come to me privately, she says, not aired this in front of everyone. I feel my throat burn. I tried, I say. I was told to stay quiet. That's when my uncle finally speaks. Well, he says casually, leaning against the porch railing, I assumed she wouldn't mind. It was Grandma's money anyway. I turned toward him, stunned. It was registered in my name. He shrugs. Paperwork. Something inside me snaps. You all talk about gratitude, I say, my voice rising, but none of you respect me. You give gifts and then take them back the second I don't behave the way you want. That's enough, my grandmother says sharply. No, it's not. My hands are shaking now, but I don't stop. You didn't give me a car, I say. You gave yourselves control. The driveway is silent again. I expect anger. Instead, Eleanor looks tired. You've always been difficult, she says. There it is, the label that's followed me my entire life. I'm not difficult, I say softly. I'm just not obedient. Her eyes narrow. And this, she gestures around, is what rebellion gets you. My phone buzzes in my hand. I look down. A message from the dealership. Subject, vehicle sale confirmation. I feel a cold wave wash over me. Sale? I open the email. The SUV wasn't just transferred, it was sold. Sold 2 days ago. I look up slowly. You didn't just take it, you sold it. My mother freezes. My uncle avoids my gaze. My grandmother's breath catches. For how much? Eleanor asks. I read the number out loud. It's far less than what it was worth. They didn't even try to get a fair price. Something inside me collapses, not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. I feel foolish, small, naive. I trusted them. I thought, I say quietly, that maybe this time was different. No one responds. That's when I realize the deepest betrayal isn't the car, it's the fact that none of them think they did anything wrong. And as I stand there, surrounded by family who feel like strangers, I understand something terrifying and freeing at the same time. If I stay silent now, this will never stop. But if I speak, really speak, I may lose them forever. And suddenly, that doesn't scare me as much as it used to. Because just as I'm about to walk away, my grandmother says something that makes my blood run cold. Victoria, if you keep pushing this, you'll regret it. And for the first time, I realize she isn't warning me, she's threatening me. When my grandmother says, "If you keep pushing this, you'll regret it," she doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. In our family, threats are always delivered softly, wrapped in concern, dressed as advice. I stare at her, searching her face for any sign that she doesn't mean it. I find none. For a moment, no one moves. No one speaks. The driveway feels like a courtroom after the verdict has already been read, but the punishment hasn't been announced yet. I'm not pushing, I say finally. I'm asking for honesty. She exhales slowly, like I have disappointed her in a deeply personal way. You've always confused honesty with defiance. That sentence lands heavier than everything else that's happened today, because it confirms something I've suspected since childhood. In this family, truth is only acceptable when it aligns with authority. My mother steps forward, placing a hand on my arm. Her grip is tight, controlling. "Let's go inside," she says. "We can talk later." Later. Privately. Where there are no witnesses. I gently pull my arm away. No. Her eyes widen slightly. That word, no, has never sat well with her. We've talked privately before, and nothing changed. My grandmother straightens. "Victoria, I will not be disrespected in my own home." Something in me finally gives way, not into anger, but clarity. "This isn't your home," I say quietly. "It's your control center." Gasps ripple through the group. My aunt mutters, "Unbelievable." My uncle scoffs. She's always had a mouth on her. And just like that, the narrative shifts again. Not a woman confronting theft, not a daughter standing up for herself, just Victoria being Victoria. Difficult, ungrateful, emotional. My grandmother lifts her chin. "You're done here." I nod slowly. I know. I turn and walk toward the street, my Uber already pulling up at the curb like a silent witness to my exile. Behind me, I hear my mother's voice crack. "You're making a mistake." I don't turn around, because I already made the mistake years ago, believing love meant endurance. The ride home is quiet. Too quiet. I stare out the window, watching houses blur past, wondering how something that looked like generosity could turn into such calculated humiliation. I replay every conversation in my head, Every moment I ignored the discomfort because I didn't want to seem ungrateful. By the time I reach my apartment, my phone is buzzing nonstop. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. Not apologies. Instructions. Mom, you embarrassed everyone. Aunt, this didn't need to be public. Uncle, you'll regret burning bridges. Not a single message asking if I'm okay. I toss my phone onto the couch and sink down beside it, finally allowing the tears to come. Not sobbing, just quiet, exhausted crying, the kind that comes when you realize you've been holding your breath for years. That night, I don't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I open my laptop and start digging. If they sold my car, there has to be a trail. I log into the DMV portal, then the dealership account, then my bank records. What I find makes my hands shake. The money from the sale never touched my account. It was deposited into a trust, a family trust, controlled by my grandmother. My chest tightens as the realization settles in. They didn't just take the SUV, they turned it into leverage. Again. I scroll further, and then I see something that makes my stomach drop. A document dated 3 months before my grandmother gifted me the SUV. A clause. Vehicle assets may be reclaimed or liquidated at the discretion of the trust if the beneficiary demonstrates behavior deemed harmful to family unity or reputation. Beneficiary. That's what I was. Not a granddaughter, not a daughter, an investment, a test. I closed the laptop slowly. The gift was never unconditional. It was probation. The next morning, I wake up to a knock on my door. I already know who it is. My mother stands in the hallway, arms crossed, lips pressed together. "We need to talk," she says. I step aside. She walks in like she owns the place. She doesn't sit. "You've gone too far," she says immediately. "Your grandmother is devastated." I laugh softly. "I lost my car." "She lost face," my mother snaps. "Do you have any idea how that looks?" There it is again. Image over integrity. "Why didn't you tell me?" I ask. "Why didn't you tell me the SUV wasn't really mine?" Her eyes flick away. "You wouldn't have accepted it. So you lied." She sighs. "We protected you." "From what?" "From yourself." The room feels colder. "You signed my name," I say. "That's illegal." She finally looks at me. "Do you really want to go there?" That question chills me more than her threat yesterday, because it isn't a warning, it's a challenge. "You won't win," she continues. "They have lawyers, resources. You have feelings." I nod slowly. "And evidence." Her expression changes, just for a second. Fear. "You wouldn't," she says. I stand up. "You taught me family is everything, so why does family keep hurting me?" She opens her mouth. No answer comes. Instead, she reaches for her purse. "If you push this," she says at the door, "don't expect help when you need it." I hold her gaze. I already don't have it. She leaves without another word. That afternoon, I make a decision. I call a lawyer. Not a flashy one, not a family friend, a quiet woman with kind eyes who listens without interrupting. When I finish, she leans back and says, "You were manipulated." I nod. "And you have a case." My heart pounds. "But," she adds gently, "it will cost you relationships." I think of the driveway, the lies, the silence. "I've already lost them," I say. She nods. Then we proceed. As I leave her office, my phone buzzes again. A text from my grandmother. "Come to the house tomorrow. We need to settle this." I stare at the message. Settle. That word usually means surrender, but this time I'm not coming alone. Because what my grandmother doesn't know yet is this. I've stopped asking for permission, and I'm done being the quiet one. I don't tell my grandmother I'm bringing a lawyer. I don't correct the tone of her message or ask what she means by settle this. I simply reply, I'll be there, and let her assume what she always has, that I'll arrive alone, uncertain, ready to be guided back into silence. The night before, I barely sleep. Not because I'm afraid of confrontation, but because for the first time in my life, I'm not planning how to appease anyone. I'm planning how to protect myself. The house looks the same the next morning. Perfect hedges, white columns, a place built to intimidate without ever raising its voice. As I walk up the steps, I remember being 10 years old, standing in this same doorway with a B on my report card, already rehearsing my apology. Today, I don't rehearse anything. Inside, my grandmother is seated in the formal living room. My mother stands near the fireplace. My uncle sits with his phone in hand, scrolling like this is all mildly inconvenient. No one offers me a seat. That used to hurt. Now it just confirms what I already know. Victoria, Eleanor says coolly, sit. I do, but not before placing my bag beside me. We need to put an end to this unpleasantness, she continues. You've made your point. I tilt my head. I wasn't aware I'd made one. My mother shoots me a warning look. This family has always taken care of you. We've given you opportunities others would kill for. And taken them back when I disappointed you, I reply calmly. Her eyes narrow. You embarrassed me. There it is again, that word. She exhales sharply. You're emotional. I smile faintly. That's usually what people say when facts make them uncomfortable. My uncle finally looks up. Are we really doing this? Yes, I say. We are. I reach into my bag and pull out a folder, placing it on the table between us. What's that? My mother asks. Documentation, transfer records, sale confirmation, trust clauses. Eleanor doesn't touch it. I don't need paperwork, she says. I know what was done. That admission hangs in the air. So you knew, I say. She lifts her chin. I approved it. My mother flinches. You approved selling something in my name without my consent, I say slowly. You were becoming unmanageable. We corrected course. Corrected. Like I was a bad investment. I open my folder and slide a single page toward her. This, I say, is the law. She doesn't look at it. Instead, she smiles. A tight, patronizing smile I've seen my whole life. You wouldn't sue your own family, she says. I wouldn't have stolen from them either. I reply. Silence. My uncle clears his throat. Let's not overreact. That car was worth more than my annual salary, I say, and you sold it for half. He shrugs. Market timing. Something in me almost laughs. I spoke to a lawyer, I continue. My mother's face drains of color. You what? She whispers. I did, I say, and she agrees this wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. Eleanor finally reaches for the paper. She reads it slowly, very slowly. The room feels like it's holding its breath. You're willing to burn this family down over a car? She says quietly. I shake my head. No, I'm refusing to be burned anymore. She looks up. If you do this, you're cut off. I nod. I already was. You'll lose everything, my mother says urgently. I already lost my dignity, I reply. I'm just getting it back. That's when Eleanor leans forward, her voice dropping. You think this ends with money? She asks. You'll be alone. The old fear stirs for a moment, then passes. I've been alone for years, I say softly. I was just surrounded by people. Her eyes harden. Get out, she says. I stand, and for the first time in my life, I don't feel small doing it. At the door, I pause. I loved you, I say. I just wish that had been enough. No one stops me. 2 weeks later, the family narrative changes. Suddenly, I'm unstable, ungrateful, influenced by outsiders. Cousins stop calling, aunts block me. My mother leaves one voicemail. "You've destroyed us," she says. "I hope it was worth it." I delete it. Because something else happens too. The trust dissolves my beneficiary status, but the settlement check arrives. Full value, plus damages. I sit at my kitchen table staring at it, not triumphant, not joyful, just relieved. Because for once, something was returned without conditions. I don't buy another luxury car. I pay off debt. I breathe. I start therapy. And slowly the silence becomes peaceful instead of painful. Until one afternoon, months later, my phone buzzes. A message from a number I don't recognize. "Grandma is sick. She wants to see you." I stare at the screen, heart pounding. Some doors, once closed, don't reopen gently. And some confrontations aren't finished when you walk away. Because I have to decide something I never planned for. Do I return, or do I finally choose myself? The message sits on my screen longer than it should. "Grandma is sick. She wants to see you." No apology, no acknowledgement, just expectation. I set my phone down and stare at the wall across from my couch, the afternoon light slicing through the blinds in neat golden lines. My apartment is quiet, no tension humming in the background, no voices monitoring my tone, no one keeping mental score of what I owe them. Peace has a sound when you're not used to it. And still, my chest tightens. Because Eleanor Whittemore has always known exactly which strings to pull. Illness is the oldest one. I tell myself to breathe. I remind myself of therapy sessions, of boundaries written down and rehearsed. You are allowed to say no. Illness does not erase harm. But she's my grandmother. And despite everything, there's a part of me that still remembers her brushing my hair when I was little, humming softly, telling me I was special before the conditions came attached. That's the part that scares me. I don't respond that day. Instead, memories surface, uninvited. I'm 8 years old again, sitting at her long dining table, feet dangling, swinging nervously as adults talk over my head. She hands me a wrapped box. Inside is a necklace, delicate and gold. "Only wear this on special occasions," she says. Later that night, I overhear her telling my mother, "She'll grow into it if she behaves." Even then, love came with probation. The next morning, my mother texts, "She's not doing well. This isn't about money anymore." It never is until it is. I type, delete, type again. What does she want? The reply comes quickly. Closure. I laugh softly, bitterly. Closure usually means confession, or forgiveness, or control dressed as peace. I call my therapist instead. "She wants to see me," I say. "And what do you want?" she asks. The question lands harder than I expect. "I don't know," I admit. "That's okay," she says gently, "but don't confuse obligation with desire." After we hang up, I sit quietly, listening to my own breathing. For the first time, I ask myself a dangerous question. What if I go, not for her, but for me? To say what was never allowed, to stand in truth without flinching. 2 days later, I reply, "I'll come, briefly." The house smells the same. Lavender polish, old money, control. My mother opens the door, surprise flashing across her face before she masks it with practiced concern. "She's upstairs," she says. "She's very weak." I nod, but don't move immediately. Before I go up, I say, "We need to be clear." She stiffens. "I'm not here to apologize," I continue, "and I'm not here to be blamed." Her lips press together. This isn't the time. It's the only time, I say calmly. She sighs, stepping aside. She's waiting. The bedroom is dim, curtains drawn. Eleanor lies propped against pillows, smaller than I remember, but no less commanding. "Victoria," she says, her voice thin but sharp. "You came." "I said I would," I reply. She gestures to the chair. I sit. For a moment, we just look at each other. Then she speaks. "You humiliated me." There it is. Even now. "I told the truth," I say. "You exposed family matters," she replies. "That's unforgivable." I feel the old urge rise, to explain, to justify, to shrink. I don't. "You stole from me and punished me for noticing." Her eyes flicker, not with remorse, but calculation. "You could have had everything," she says, "if you'd just trusted us." "Trusted you to control me?" I ask. Silence. "You were always watching," I continue softly, "always testing. I was never your granddaughter. I was an asset." She exhales slowly. "You're dramatic." I smile faintly. "And you're consistent." Her hand trembles slightly on the blanket. "I did what I thought was best." "For who?" I ask. She doesn't answer. Instead, she says, "I'm dying." The words hang heavy. "I know, and I'm sorry you're sick." "But," she presses, "but illness doesn't rewrite history, and it doesn't earn forgiveness by default." Her eyes harden. "You'll regret this." I shake my head. "No, I already lived the regret of staying quiet." For the first time, something like uncertainty crosses her face. "I wanted to make you strong," she says finally. "You taught me control. Strength came later, when I left." She looks away, toward the window. "You could still come back. We could fix things." I stand. "Some things aren't broken. They're finished." Her voice drops. "Then why did you come?" I pause at the door. "To make sure the little girl who kept waiting for approval doesn't follow me anymore." And then I leave. Outside, the air feels lighter, but as I walk toward my car, my phone buzzes again. A message from my uncle. "You should know, Grandma changed her will last night." My heart skips. "Changed it how?" I type. 3 dots appear. Disappear. Then the message comes. "She cut you out completely and blamed you for everything." I stare at the screen. Not shocked, just tired. Because some people would rather punish you forever than admit they were wrong once. But what my uncle doesn't know, what none of them know yet, is that this story doesn't end with inheritance. It ends with freedom. And they're about to realize how little power money has over someone who finally walked away. Because the next call I receive isn't from family at all. It's from the lawyer, and she says something that makes me sit down hard. "There's something you need to know about that will." I grip my phone tighter as I step into my apartment, the door clicking shut behind me like punctuation at the end of a sentence I didn't know I was finishing. "What about the will?" I ask. My lawyer doesn't rush her words. She never does. "Your grandmother's recent amendment isn't as simple as cutting you out." I sink onto the couch. "She added a clause," she continues, "one that could invalidate the entire document." My heart pounds. "How?" "She specifically cited your lawsuit as evidence of betrayal and emotional harm to the family," my lawyer explains. "But she failed to disclose that the settlement was court-mediated and legally justified." I swallow. "Meaning?" "Meaning," she says carefully, "any competent probate judge would see that as coercive and retaliatory." My chest tightens, not with hope, but disbelief. "She tried to punish you," the lawyer adds, "and in doing so, she exposed herself." I close my eyes. So even at the end, control mattered more than fairness. What happens now? I ask. That depends, she replies. If the will is contested, it could all be reopened. And if it is? I ask. She pauses. You could be entitled to more than you think. I laugh softly. I don't want it. I know, she says gently, but you deserve to know the truth. After we hang up, I sit in silence, letting it settle. For years, I believed I was weak because I cared too much, because I wanted approval, because I stayed longer than I should have. Now I see it differently. I was strong for surviving a system designed to shrink me. The phone buzzes again. A group message. Family update. My name shouldn't be in it, but it is. Grandma has decided to make her final wishes known. Those who remain loyal will be taken care of. Loyal. There it is again. I don't respond. I turn my phone face down. 3 weeks later, Eleanor Whitmore passes quietly in her sleep. I find out through an email from a cousin who signs off with, "I hope you're happy now." I don't cry. I grieve something older, the fantasy that love would one day be unconditional. The funeral is private. I don't attend. Instead, I go for a long walk, letting the cold air sting my cheeks, grounding me in the present. I remind myself that closure doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like distance. 2 months later, the lawyer calls again. The will is being contested, she says. By who? I ask. Everyone. I smile sadly, because when money enters the room, loyalty leaves quickly. She continues, your grandmother's assets were more complicated than anyone realized. Several trusts overlap. Some contradict each other. I listen quietly. And, she adds, there's a letter. A letter, I ask, addressed to you. My heart stutters. I'll forward it, she says. When it arrives, I don't open it right away. I make tea. I sit at my table. I breathe. Then I click. Victoria, if you're reading this, it means you didn't bend. That was always your flaw and your strength. I stop. My throat tightens. I wanted to teach you discipline. Instead, I taught you distance. That is my failure. Tears blur the screen. I don't apologize easily, but I will say this. You were never weak. You just refused to be owned. I close my eyes. She saw it. Too late, but she saw it. I've made arrangements outside the will, something that cannot be taken back. My breath catches. Not as leverage, as release. The letter ends without affection, without warmth, but with truth. A week later, a package arrives. Inside is a single deed. A small property, nothing extravagant. No strings, no clauses. Just my name, free and clear. I sit there for a long time, stunned. It isn't the value that matters, it's the absence of control. The family explodes when they find out. Calls, accusations, demands. You manipulated her. You planned this. You always wanted more. I don't argue. I don't explain. I block numbers. I choose silence, not as submission, but as peace. Months pass. I turn the property into something useful, a rental, passive income, stability. I continue therapy. I learn that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors you choose when to open. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the SUV, how it started all of this, how a question in a driveway cracked open decades of manipulation, and I smile, because I didn't lose a car, I gained a life. The strangest part about freedom is how quiet it is at first. No dramatic music, no applause, no moment where the universe stops and says, "Congratulations, you survived." Just silence and space. After the chaos settles, after the calls stop coming, after the last cousin blocks me back, after the will disputes fade into background noise, I'm left alone with myself in a way I've never been before. For weeks, I keep expecting the other shoe to drop. Some hidden condition, some fine print, some final attempt to pull me back in. But it doesn't come. And that unsettles me more than conflict ever did. Because my entire life, love arrived loudly, with expectations, surveillance, judgment. Silence used to mean punishment. Distance meant danger. Now, silence just exists. I move into a new rhythm. Mornings start slower. I drink my coffee by the window instead of checking my phone immediately. I stop flinching every time a notification buzzes. I learn the difference between loneliness and peace. Still, healing isn't linear. Some nights I dream I'm back in that driveway, my grandmother asking her question, my mother watching closely, everyone waiting for me to choose silence again. I always wake up before I answer. Therapy helps me understand why. My therapist says, "You were trained to associate worth with approval. Of course your nervous system is confused now." That word, trained, sticks with me. I wasn't broken. I was conditioned. That realization changes everything. The property Eleanor left me sits quietly on the edge of town. Modest, ordinary, perfect. The first time I unlock the door, I expect to feel triumph. Instead, I feel grief. Not for her, but for the years I spent believing love had to be earned through compliance. I sit on the floor of the empty living room and let myself cry properly for the first time. Not the restrained tears I used to allow, not the silent ones meant to be polite. Real ones. The kind that come when you finally stop pretending you're fine. I whisper out loud, "You didn't deserve that." And for once, I'm not talking to anyone else. I'm talking to me. Word travels fast in families like mine. A month later, I run into my cousin Jason at a grocery store. He freezes when he sees me, then forces a smile. "Hey," he says, "didn't think you'd show your face around here again." "I live here," I reply calmly. He scoffs. "Must be nice. Grandma's parting gift." I don't correct him. I don't explain. I don't defend myself. Because something important has shifted. I don't need him to understand. "Well," he adds, lowering his voice, "people say you played the long game." I meet his eyes. People say a lot of things. He studies me, clearly unsettled by how little this affects me. "You know," he mutters, "she was hard on all of us." I almost laugh. Hard on all of us, but destructive to me. There's a difference. "I hope you heal," I say sincerely. He looks confused. I walk away. A few weeks later, my mother reaches out again. This time, it's an email. "I don't recognize you anymore. You've changed." I read it twice. Then I reply with one sentence. "I hope someday you'll ask why." She never responds. And for the first time, that doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like confirmation. The biggest surprise comes one quiet Sunday afternoon. I'm sorting paperwork when I find the Uber receipt, the one from the day everything blew up. I almost delete it. Then I stop. Because that ride wasn't a humiliation. It was a beginning. That Uber wasn't a downgrade. It was the first step away from a life where my worth was conditional. I saved the receipt in a folder labeled Proof of Change. Not for anyone else. For me. One evening, as I sit on my balcony watching the city lights come on, it hits me. No one is monitoring me. No one is grading my choices. No one is waiting for me to mess up. The absence of pressure feels unfamiliar, but good, like removing a tight ring you wore for too long. I think back to my grandmother's final words to me. "You could still come back." She never understood this one thing. I didn't leave to punish anyone. I left to survive. And somewhere along the way, survival turned into growth. I start volunteering, quietly, no announcements, no praise. I mentor a younger woman at work who reminds me too much of myself. Apologetic, brilliant, shrinking to fit other people's expectations. One day, she says, "I don't want to seem difficult." I look at her and say gently, "Difficult to who?" She stares at me like I've unlocked something, and maybe I have. The story about the SUV still circulates in my family like a cautionary tale. Don't end up like Victoria. She chose money over family. They still get it wrong, but that's okay, because I know the truth. I chose myself over control. I chose peace over performance. I chose a future where love doesn't come with contracts. And if that makes me the villain in their story, I can live with that. As I close this chapter of my life, I want to say this to anyone listening. Sometimes the betrayal that breaks you is the same one that frees you. Sometimes the thing you lose, a car, an inheritance, approval, is just the price of admission to your own life. And sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. The final lesson doesn't arrive with drama. It comes quietly on an ordinary Tuesday morning when I realize I've gone an entire week without thinking about my family at all. No rehearsed conversations in my head, no imagined confrontations, no guilt looping in the background like static. Just life. I'm standing in my kitchen making breakfast, sunlight spilling across the counter, when the thought hits me. This is what safety feels like. Not excitement, not approval, not victory. Safety. For most of my life, I confused intensity with love. I thought if something hurt deeply, it must matter deeply. I thought being chosen meant being controlled, and being loved meant being monitored. But love, real love, doesn't require you to disappear. It doesn't demand silence in exchange for belonging. It doesn't punish you for noticing when something is wrong. A few months after everything settles, I drive past my grandmother's old neighborhood. I don't stop. I don't slow down. I just notice something surprising inside myself. There's no anger, no satisfaction, no ache, just neutrality. And that's when I know I'm free, because neutrality is what happens when power is gone. People still ask questions, carefully worded ones, curious ones. You don't talk to your family anymore? Do you ever regret it? Wouldn't it be easier to just forgive? I used to have answers ready. Now I just say, it's healthier this way, and I let that be enough. Forgiveness, I've learned, is not reconciliation. You can forgive someone without reopening the door. You can understand someone's damage without volunteering to be wounded by it again. You can let go of the past without inviting it to sit at your table. One evening, I find myself thinking about my grandmother, not with resentment, but with clarity. She believed control was care. She believed money could replace emotional safety. She believed obedience was the same as love. She was wrong, but she was also human, and I don't need to punish her memory to honor my healing. Understanding doesn't require surrender. The property she left me continues to generate income quietly in the background. It's stable, predictable, the exact opposite of how love was offered in my family. Sometimes I think that's the real inheritance, not the building, the contrast, a reminder of how life feels when nothing can be taken away for disobedience. I've started dating again, not because I was lonely, but because I'm curious. And now I notice red flags quickly. People who rush intimacy, people who frame control as concern, people who make generosity feel like debt. I don't argue, I don't explain, I simply step back. Boundaries used to feel like rejection. Now they feel like self-respect. Every once in a while, I remember that moment in the driveway. My grandmother's voice, the eyes on me, the lie hanging in the air. And I think about how close I was to staying quiet, how easily I could have swallowed it again, taken the blame, carried the shame. I didn't know it then, but that question, "Where's your SUV?" wasn't a trap. It was an invitation to tell the truth, to break the pattern, to choose myself out loud. And I did. If you're listening to this and something in it feels familiar, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not difficult for wanting fairness. You are not ungrateful for questioning control. You are not selfish for choosing peace over proximity. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is stop participating in a system that only works when you stay silent. Today, my life is smaller in some ways. Fewer people, less noise, no grand displays of approval. But it's also deeper, calmer, honest. And for the first time, nothing in my life can be taken away to teach me a lesson because I already learned it. If you've ever been betrayed by family, manipulated through guilt, or made to feel like love was something you had to earn, you're not alone, and you're not wrong for walking away. Sometimes the bravest choice isn't staying, it's leaving with your integrity intact. So I'll end with this question for you. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that forced you to choose yourself, even when it cost you relationships? If so, share your story in the comments. You never know who needs to hear it. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay, because healing is easier when we do it together.